Hi, thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Jill Zekwe. Thank you very much for coming today. If you can hear me, if you can please give me a thumbs up in the comments or a smiley face or a frowny face if you're having a rough day. Okay. So I am going to be talking about ways you can protect your mental health and well-being in pregnancy and postpartum. Uh, um, let's see. So in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to give you a better understanding of who I am, more information about postpartum depression, and why it's so important to identify it, treat it, and ideally prevent it when we can. I'm also going to give you 2 tools to help you protect your mental health. And near the end, I'm going to be taking a few questions. So as I go along, if you come up with a question, you have something, feel free to go into the Zoom Q&A section, that option in Zoom, and you can type in your question and I will answer those and at the very end. And then at the very end, I'm going to give a free gift to everyone who watches. So let's begin. A little bit more about me. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram or not, but I'm a perinatal mental health expert, but I didn't begin my career in perinatal mental health. I actually started in medicine as a family doctor. I graduated from medical school and residency, and then I practiced family medicine. I provided prenatal care, I delivered babies, I coached moms on breastfeeding, and provided medical care for the whole family. And I absolutely loved it. And then about 3 years into my medical practice, I had my daughter and I became a mom myself. And I was really shocked how unprepared I was with my medical training and my birth class and all the books I read. None of it covered the stuff that I really needed to know to be better prepared. The stuff that would make that time, that transition to motherhood, so much less stressful. Don't get me wrong. I love my daughter. I love being a mom, but I was also really overwhelmed. You can kind of see it in some of the pictures, I think. And I wondered if other moms felt the same way, or was I the only one? And so I began asking my friends, not the ones that make everything seem perfect and easy all the time, but the ones that are really real and would tell honestly, how is this? And every single friend I had was like, oh my gosh, yes. They really did not feel like they were fully prepared. So a few years later, when I thought, now that I'm an experienced mom and I can handle everything, it shouldn't be a problem. And I had my son, and this time I developed postpartum anxiety. There he is next to my daughter. I had just too much on my plate. I returned to work at 6 weeks postpartum, way too soon. And I felt so anxious. I felt like a guitar string that had been plucked and was vibrating. I was, reverberating in my own body. And it was like that off and on for months. That's postpartum anxiety. And that experience motivated me to go back to school, even though I was a practicing physician, and get my master's degree in counseling psychology. I wanted to learn everything about maternal well-being. That's me with my son. He was about 5 by the time I graduated. And to my knowledge, I am the only perinatal psychotherapist who is also a family medicine doctor. This unique background allows me to think of what's not just best for your mental well-being, but also keep in mind what is medically healthiest for both you and your baby. I hear a lot of recommendations from doctors that sacrifices mom's mental health. And on the other hand, I also hear it from counselors that they may provide advice that is comforting, but sometimes it's not medically safe for you or for your baby. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can hold both mental and physical needs of you and your family and provide guidance with all of that in mind. And when we don't do that, parents get overwhelmed. They are bombarded with conflicting advice, and then they feel guilty when they can't do it all. And that is such a common struggle for parents today. And so in 2010, I opened my private practice in women's mental health. And this is my office where I see my in-person clients. So not long after I opened up my practice, word got out and my practice filled quite quickly. OBs and midwives would be calling me, asking me to see their patients, and soon I just did not have room to take any more. And at that same time, multiple studies proved what I had found working with hundreds of my own clients, is that when we teach specific skills and strategies to pregnant women and moms of infants, we can reduce the risk of postpartum depression. I want to emphasize that because research has proven we can increase your well-being. It can be an easier transition. Yet besides a few research institutions, no one is sharing these strategies with parents. It's like they're secrets, but they shouldn't be. This should be information that every parent has access to. And in fact, many of the women who come to me are pregnant for the second or third time, and they want this experience to be different. Maybe they had postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety with their first two babies, and they don't want it this way for their third. So let me tell you why this is so important, beginning with the numbers. 1 in 7 women develop postpartum depression. And I will often refer to postpartum depression as PPD, but it's the same thing. Postpartum depression is the same as PPD. Common risk factors for PPD include having a history of depression in the past, having had postpartum depression before, having a family member who has had depression, even a male relative. If your father had depression, it puts you at higher risk of having postpartum depression, just a little bit higher, but higher risk. Then also having a history of infertility or pregnancy loss. You're entering pregnancy grieving or in a wounded state. And it seems to put women at higher risk. If you are a sufferer of chronic PMS, you're at higher risk. And if maternity leave is under 12 weeks, that's also associated with an increased risk of PPD. There are at least 20 other factors that have been shown to be associated with PPD as well. But I'm not going to get into all of them, but I do want to talk about postpartum anxiety as well. When we combine postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, it becomes 1 in 5 pregnancies are having it. And the short abbreviation for that is PMAD, postpartum mood and anxiety disorders. This makes PMADs the #1 complication of pregnancy and for the year postpartum, the #1. So think of all the prenatal care visits that you do with your doctor or midwife, all the testing you do, the blood pressure checks, urine checks, blood tests, ultrasounds, drinking that glucola, all of that. It's all important. Yet, what preparation are you given to protect your mental health and well-being? Not much, right? So that the thing, though, that surprises most people is that PPD doesn't just happen for women. Dads get PPD too. In fact, 1 in 10 dads do, and 1 in 8 to 10 adoptive moms get PPD. So, what is causing this? Well, we don't really know the full answer. We know there's a hormonal component. We know there's a hormone called allopregnanolone that drops off immediately after birth, and this is associated sometimes with postpartum depression. But dads and adoptive moms are getting PPD as well, and they don't have these hormonal changes. So clearly, more is going on than the hormones. We just don't have the full answer yet. So, why is it so important that we prevent postpartum depression? Well, first of all, postpartum depression sucks. It's absolutely miserable. PPD takes away the joy of being with your baby. It impairs a mother's ability to bond with her baby. Depression actually blocks oxytocin, the love hormone that allows bonding to occur. And then PPD is associated with higher risks of multiple complications in pregnancy, including preeclampsia, preterm birth, low APGAR scores in the baby, and even higher rates of divorce. Now, I'm not telling you this to scare you, but to empower you, because we know that we can make a difference through prevention and through early identification and treatment. So let's talk more about what PPD looks like so that we can better identify it, whether it's you or someone that you care about. So the predominant feeling is sadness, but some people feel more numb or just empty. They'll tell me they can't cry. So sometimes people think, oh, I'm not crying all the time. It can't be postpartum depression. No, sometimes it's just an emptiness, a depressed, like your emotional range is depressed. That's where the word depression comes from. Sometimes moms feel hopeless, like things will never get better. They have low energy. They feel very overwhelmed, or they feel inadequate, like they're somehow failing at motherhood. And women with PPD often feel like they are bad mothers because depression makes you highly self-critical. Then another trait we see is that moms may fear being alone with the baby. I see that more with postpartum anxiety, or be afraid to be apart from their baby. Now, to a little bit, moms may have each of these emotions at some point, but when it is continuous, when it is intense, when it is impairing your ability to function, that's when it's more likely to be postpartum depression. Another symptom or sign that we'll see in postpartum depression or anxiety is that moms may be more irritable or more angry. They may withdraw from friends and family. So it's a lot of misery that a woman goes through. So what are some of the stressors that seem to be making this change so hard? Well, here are just a few. Clearly, moms have a lot going on. There's a lot of wonderful, but there's also so much change. It is a lot to deal with without a great roadmap. And I don't want to get all doom and gloom here, because there's also a lot of good news. Because there are so many factors that contribute to postpartum depression and anxiety, there's a lot of ways where we can intervene to make a difference, so that there's a lot of strategies that can help reduce and prevent postpartum depression. Here are just a few of the things that can contribute to your wellness. This isn't even the complete list. I do want to make it clear, though, I'm not saying you have to do all of this. By no means. We don't want to add all of that on top of caring for a baby. You can choose what is right for you, what works for you, what feels meaningful. But there are a couple tips that I recommend for all moms. So let's get into those. And those two that I'm going to cover today are the first is create your circle of support. And the second is a tool for better sleep. So first, let's talk about how you can get more support to deal with all those stressors I just showed you. So most moms today no longer have a village. Unless you're blessed to live next to your parents and family, and your parents and family happen to be really helpful, then you need to create your own circle of support. People you trust for guidance, for parenting advice, for emotional support, for connection, and for hands-on help so that you can get a break. So if you don't have a village, here are some ideas where you can find more support. On the left, I have free supports that don't cost money. And then on the right are paid supports, depending upon your financial resources. But there is even a way that you can add postpartum doulas and coaches to your baby shower registry so other people can help with that. So take a moment now and think of who you can ask for help or support. For some people, you may have, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of people. It's good to write that down, to think of their names and get in touch with them in advance and say, hey, I'm going to need your help. I don't know what it might be yet, but would you be interested? Can we hang out? For others, you may feel like, I don't have any help. So if that's you, you're going to need to get creative. Okay. So maybe you have a friend who's also pregnant or has a baby. Talk with them about how you can support each other. Maybe she can come over to your house with her baby, play with both so you can take a nap. And then a couple of days later, you go to her house and you do the same thing for her. How can you support each other? Maybe you take turns making a giant meal so that your family cooks for them one night and their family cooks for you one night. And be creative. Figure out what is going to work best for you. And if you can, in the comments, just write down ideas of who you think will be most supportive for you and what sort of support you might want. It's good to share it with people because I really want to normalize this concept of asking for support and help. So often we focus on being independent, and that doesn't work well when you have a newborn. You really need to have a circle of support. It's also good to know what to ask for help. And so sometimes after you have a baby, a lot of people ask, but you don't really know what you're going to need, or it's hard to come up with the language of what to ask for. So here are some ideas for support and company and help. You might want to take a screenshot of this just to help you remember what you can ask for. Things like hanging out together at home, meeting for coffee, bringing a snack. All right, but given the short time we have, I'm going to jump right to the next tool for your motherhood toolbox, and that is sleep. One of the most effective ways to protect or improve your well-being is by getting sufficient sleep. Note, I'm not saying getting great sleep. Almost no mom gets great sleep at the end of her pregnancy or in those first couple months with your newborn. but you do need to get enough. When you don't get enough, your ability to concentrate, your ability to function, it all goes down. Your ability to handle stress goes down. It's like your bandwidth of what you can deal with kind of narrows when you don't get enough sleep. And when we're both, when you and your partner are both overtired, you can be more irritable. You can get into more fights together, right when you need each other most for support. And unfortunately, the months, weeks, and months of sleep deprivation accumulate. You think it will get easier after the newborn phase when your baby can go a little longer between feeds. That does help. But even so, your sleep deficit accumulates. So I teach parents over 20 effective ways to get better sleep. We don't have time to get into all of those right now. So I am going to give you one tool that when you use this, if it works for you and it works for a lot of families, it can make it so that you get more sleep your entire first year with your baby. And that is your baby sleep window. Not that many people have heard of this. And it is a stage in your baby's development right around when they're 5 to 6 weeks old. Then at that point, in that 5 to 6 week age, babies aren't quite as alert and active as they are when they're 2 to 3 months old. And so when you put them down to bed, when they're tired, but still awake, during this stage, when you begin this practice of putting them down, when they're tired, but still awake, they're far more easily able to learn how to fall asleep. So this is a cute little baby, but he's not in a safe swaddle. Nonetheless, he is adorable, so I'm using him, but don't swaddle your baby like this unattended. So when you take advantage of the sleep window, it helps babies learn how to be good sleepers. And it's so much easier at this stage. You can hold them as much as you want when they're awake all day. It's fine. But when you want them, except for naps, but when you want to put them down when it's time to sleep, right in the sleep window, when you put them down, they learn the skill of how to calm and smooth, and it's effortless. There's no tears. So it's not like when they're 2 to 3 months old, it's much harder. And when you hear parents sleep training their babies and listening to their babies cry, that's often because they miss that 5 to 6 week old sleep window stage. So, and if you miss it, then every time your baby wakes in the middle of the night, then they need you to fall back asleep. And that's okay for a few months, but it gets really exhausting over the months and sometimes years. Now, the sleep window stage doesn't work for every baby. They're all a bit different, and it isn't something you have to do. Some parents really need that nap time connection where they're holding their baby, and that's perfectly fine. There is no single one right way to parent. That's why I offer a variety of sleep tools. You can choose which strategy works best for you and your baby and your family. So I see we are almost out of time. So in a moment, I'm going to be taking your questions. So if you have something you want to ask me, please go ahead, if you haven't already, and enter it into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. And while you're doing that, in the meantime, I want to tell you about a program I developed so that everyone can have the tools to be a happier, more content, and less stressed mom or dad. And it is called the Motherhood Survival Manual Masterclass. I took all the information from the latest research, my experience as a family doctor and perinatal psychotherapist working with hundreds of patients, and my own experience as a survivor of postpartum anxiety. And I put it all online into this course. It's not a birth class. It is a motherhood preparation program. It is flexible with evidence-based tools and tips about how to make your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience go better. I don't want you to stumble in the same potholes that I see so many of my clients have done when they come in to see me. It seems to be the same mistakes that so many moms make, that if they just knew the tool in advance, they could sidestep it. And so I put all of this into the Motherhood Survival Manual Masterclass and to make it more comprehensive than anything I've seen out there. It starts with a deeper understanding of what postpartum depression is and how the cycle begins that triggers it, this cycle of PPD to happen. And then in the second module, I go in to explain matrescence. That is, matrescence are the changes that happen in you as you become a mother, the mental and physical, social changes. I even go into things like that. A lot of women don't know that your brain actually changes in its structure a little bit. You can see it on MRIs when they do studies on women. I just think it's fascinating that it's not just your belly and what you can see that is changing. Even your brain prepares you more for motherhood. And then I get into skills and strategies to prevent postpartum depression, as well as preparing for bringing your baby home so that that first night with your baby isn't as stressful. And that is such a common experience. Then in the third module, as I mentioned, I teach you the strategies for postpartum depression prevention. And then I get into how to handle specific situations like breastfeeding struggles, or how to deal with colic and crying, and of course, all those tools for getting better sleep. In module 6 is a section for your partner and when you need additional support. So I want all moms that have partners to be able to communicate really well with their partners so that you better support each other and so that your partner learns how to take things off your plate when you're caring for a baby. And if you're breastfeeding on top of that, some things need to come off of your plate so that there's room to handle it all. And so that section is advice for your partner. And by having these tools, it helps you become stronger as a couple together as you have your baby. And then finally, the last 2 modules are tools and coping skills for reducing your stress. So if you haven't had a baby yet, you may not realize how stressful it can be to be caring for this little being that is more important to you, more precious than anything you've ever had in your life, and yet be so delicate and have so many needs at the same time, all while you're exhausted. So these last 2 sections are simple techniques so that you can increase your bandwidth, be less overwhelmed, so you can have stress reduction. And it's not like go to the spa. You don't have time for that as a busy mom. It's tools that you can do so that you can take 20 seconds and use a breathing technique to just bring things down a notch, make life a little less stressful. So this entire course is really about ways to better meet your needs so that you can be the mama you want to be and experience the joy that motherhood can bring. And when you have the tools to make motherhood easier and less stressful, you enjoy it more and your whole family can feel the difference. So if you haven't entered your questions in, please do so now. I'm going to bring those up. Okay. Let's see. So there's a little wanting more information about the 5 to 6 week sleep window. I'd be happy to go into that a little bit more. So that is that stage when your baby's about 5 to 6 weeks old. They are not fully awake yet. They're kind of more tired. They're less alert. And if you use that age when it's time to put them down for naps and for bedtime, you want to put them down when they are still awake, not nurse them completely to sleep. You want them drowsy or tired, but still awake. And if you put them to bed at that, and when they're still awake, they learn how to soothe themselves much more easily at that stage than at any other stage. Okay. By 2 months old, babies tend to be much more aware of when they're in your arms and not in your arms. And they don't want to not be in your arms for sleep. Let's see. In-laws questions, those are always really tough. I do go into that in my course on how to cope with in-laws, as well as supplements. Nothing has been fully proven for PPD, but there are some. And if you follow me on Instagram, I have posts about natural food items that may benefit PPD. And then let's see. You have a 4-month-old at home and you're wondering about the timing. Okay, so this course is designed for women who are pregnant or up to 6 months old. So it still is very helpful if you have a 4-month-old baby. Some of the skills, like the first night home with your baby, well, you've already missed that part, but a lot of it, understanding how to get your supports, and way beyond that, there's a lot more information that would still be very useful to you. Over half of it is still going to be incredibly helpful, because it's not like the sleep is all figured out, or that the discussions with your partner are all smooth and figured out. So, and the skills for learning how to prevent postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety are still very much important at this stage. Let's see. And then one client or one person is asking, that they're emotional and moody in their 3rd trimester. Will that also be a prediction for postpartum depression? I would say that that's a pretty normal experience for a woman to feel in her 3rd trimester. But if you are concerned about postpartum depression, mention it to your doctor or your nurse midwife. Say, I'd like to be screened for it. Every hospital, every doctor's office and midwife is supposed to be screening you for postpartum depression and anxiety. That is standard of care. So you can take one of their tests, and then you can get more information, and then they can help refer you. And then the other thing is the course can give you skills for dealing with your emotions, how to handle them, and also how to understand them better. Because I think emotions often give us really important information as to what's bothering us, what needs to change in our life, So just as I think PMS sometimes, like, you get clear all that drama, all the emotions that you were feeling. You have a big argument with your partner, and then it's all better the next day. For a lot of women, that's how PMS goes. So sometimes you deal with important things when you get in touch with your moods. So I think that might be helpful. And then my course, I want to just state that my course is not a substitute. If you for proper treatment. If you have postpartum depression or anxiety, if you know that's where you are, this course can help you, but it can't be instead of approved treatment, seeing a therapist, talking to your doctor, seeing if medications might be helpful for you. Okay. I want to make sure that everybody who's watching, we're kind of out of time. So I want to make sure that everybody who's watching has something that they can take home. And that is my free ebook on 5 steps to prevent postpartum depression. So you can download it now or take a screenshot of this so you can download it later. It is completely free. And don't forget to follow me on Motherhood Survival Manual on Instagram, because I love to put tips on there on ways to prevent postpartum depression, and then just things about motherhood in general and pregnancy. I really love sharing as much information as possible. Plus, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be among the first to know when my book, Motherhood Survival Manual, becomes available late this spring or summer, still being determined. Please follow me there. And then I have one more gift, and that is for watching this webinar. You can have a temporary discount code for 20% off of my Motherhood Survival Manual Masterclass. I really want all moms to have these tools, and I price my masterclass to be less than the price of one appointment with me that my patients pay for one session. So I tried to make it much more affordable for more moms, and you can use this coupon for further discount. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this and be a part of this, and for taking steps to protect your well-being and that of your family. What you do really makes a difference. So thank you very much for being a part of this, and have a great rest of your day and evening. Take care. Thank you.